Today, I am honored to have one of Trump's economic advisors from the first term. He also advises the president currently. In fact, I just saw him all over the news talking about jobs and growth. To help me go through some of the biggest news stories, I have Steve Moore. Steve, thank you for joining me again.
Hey, Stephen, thanks so much for having me on your show. Always glad to do it.
Oh, I appreciate you taking the time out. I wanted to jump right in on this big story with you. So nearly all data coming out shows that President Trump was right about tariffs. They've been wildly successful. Money is pouring in. You've got groups saying, oh my gosh, we could bring in $300 billion this year. Over the course of the next decade, we could actually pay almost $4 trillion off the national debt. Why then are there groups suing President Trump, trying to say that as the chief executive, he doesn't have the authority to negotiate on behalf of the country?
Well, Stephen, I'm not always the biggest fan of tariffs because, of course, tariffs are taxes. But I do like I always say I don't like tariffs, but I love the trade deals that Trump is coming up with. That's have really been quite remarkable. And I wouldn't have thought it possible 6 months ago that we'd get such great deals that treat America fairly, create a level playing field, and the discriminatory nature of trade barriers to American manufacturing goods, our dairy products, our farmers, and let's not forget our technology companies that were really discriminated against in the European countries and Asia. So it's been an amazing and improbable run of victories for Trump that is going to level the playing field. And Trump is a great negotiator, as he's proven, and it's going to hopefully make for freer but also fairer trade, so that America gets a fair deal from these countries. Now, I put China as another category because I think China is a very dangerous country. They lie, they cheat, they steal in terms of the leaders in the communist government there. So we have to be very careful about China. But how about what we got with Canada? How about the deals we got with Europe and the UK? I think they're excellent, and I think they will benefit both countries.
Okay. Do you where do you see these lawsuits going against the White House, where they're now trying to say he doesn't have authority? Is this something that's going to have to go to the Supreme Court level?
Yeah, probably will, and we'll see what happens here. I mean, I'm on the fence on this because, I mean, I'm a kind of strict constitutionalist, and the Constitution says pretty clearly that all taxes start in Congress, in the House of Representatives. But what's happened is that the Congress has delegated an emergency authority to the president to raise tariffs, and tariffs are taxes. And so we'll see what the Supreme Court decides on this. If they decide against him, then of course that means that these tariffs would have to be approved by Congress. That would make it very difficult because Democrats are against anything Trump is for, even if they're things that Democrats were once for. If Trump is for them, they're against them. That's called Trump derangement syndrome. And it's very real, and it's very counterproductive to our country.
Yeah, you make a good point. I mean, if he says, let's go after criminals, they support criminals. If he says go after illegal immigrants, they want to keep all the illegal immigrants. If he says return these trafficked children to Guatemala, their parents are waiting, he gets blocked on that. So even though there's hundreds of billions of dollars pouring in, a real opportunity to pay down that national debt, Democrats, they have to take that opposing position.
That's right. I mean, to add to your point, I mean, if they came up with a cure for cancer, they'd be on the side of cancer. So you just can't make it up with these people. And listen, I mean, I didn't agree with Biden on most things that he did, but on the things that he did do that I supported, I said this is a good policy. I can't think of a single policy that Trump has put in place where the Democrats have admitted this is good. They won't even admit that securing the border was a victory for the country. And that's one of those 90-10 issues where unless you're, way out there on the left and believe that anybody should come in, whether they're a criminal or a drug runner or a terrorist, that's an issue that Trump has certainly won the day on.
Okay. I don't know if you know this. It's just something I'm curious about. Let's say that the Supreme Court does block the president. At that point, the tariffs that we have brought in, does the United States then have to drain the treasury and return those to foreign nations?
Probably. I'm not a constitutional scholar, so I don't know exactly what this would mean. It certainly mean that the current tariffs would have to go away. Whether the tariffs that have already been collected would have to be repaid, I think the answer is probably yes, but I'm not exactly sure.
Okay. Another thing that President Trump pointed out was he said, of course, as the chief executive for the country, I have the authority to negotiate what's best when it comes to trade deals. One thing he pointed out is he's been able to bring 6 or 7 wars to an end by tariffs and new negotiating contracts. So for him, he really believes that this is a tool that a president should have.
Yeah, he does, and in most cases, he's used it very effectively. So, he wants that piece of armor in his tool shed to be able to use to force countries to do things that are America's interest. He's done this in his first term, for example, by basically, saying that we weren't going to pay our dues for NATO unless the other countries paid up their dues. And, sometimes you have to force these people's hands. It's almost like, we have a kick me sign on me, and Trump has taken the kick me sign off of us. Well, the people who are doing the kicking don't like that very much. But all he's trying to do is just say, give us a fair deal, whether it's, the foreign countries paying their dues on the military, whether it's paying for the drugs that they import from the United States, whether it's what they charge our manufacturers and our farmers for the goods that we produce. All of those things. Trump is a put America first guy, and that's one of the things I love about it.
Yeah, absolutely. He said just in the last 24 hours that his hope with tariffs would be that he could replace income tax.
Yes.
Would that be for everybody, or just maybe under 100,000 a year? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've devoted a lot of my career to getting rid of income tax because I think it's the most devious and counterproductive tax there is. Maybe the only worst one would be the death tax, where you have to pay all these taxes your whole life, and then they tax you when they lay you in the casket and take half of your money of your lifetime savings away, and you can't leave it for your kids. But if we could get rid of the death tax and the income tax, that would be like rocket fuel for the U.S. economy. We would be on steroids. Nobody could possibly compete with the United States. So I sincerely hope we do that. I don't know if Congress would go for it, but I sure would if we could eliminate the income tax, and then we'd have to replace. I think it was the 16th Amendment that allowed an income tax. So we need to repeal that terrible amendment.
Okay. I mean, before, what was it, 1930, there was no income tax, and they really justified ramping it up after World War II. Has the government become so dependent on that income that it would be very difficult to strip out?
Well,
Outside
actually,
of tariffs?
it was around 1917, 1918 or thereabouts that we put the income tax in, and that became the tax that financed World War I, which arguably the United States probably shouldn't have ever even been in that war, but the income tax raised the revenue for it. And then, the income tax started at 7%. And the congressmen and senators promised it would never go over 10%. And then 3 years later, it wasn't 7%, it was 70%. So that was Woodrow Wilson, one of our worst presidents in American history.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I would love to get rid of that. Now, are you saying that the economy would take off like we haven't seen just because hundreds of millions of Americans would have more money in their pocket to spend?
Well, if you right now, for example, I'll just take my own situation. And I'm not rich. I'm doing pretty well, but I'm not rich by any means. I'm paying almost half of my income in taxes. So, why do I keep working if every dollar I make, 52 cents goes to the government? So if you reduce that tax rate, it's called the Laffer curve. People are going to work more. They're going to invest more. They're going to create more jobs. They're going to start more businesses. That's exactly what we want.
Okay. Now, how come Trump is working to replace taxes on Americans, but Democrats literally ran this last campaign on, we will raise your taxes? Why is there such a division in thinking? Is it just because he's an entrepreneur and a business owner?
Democrats have fallen in love with taxes because they need massive taxes to fund their massive spending spree. Remember, Biden came in and spent $3 or $4 trillion we didn't have. He financed that through debt. Eventually, it's going to have to be financed through higher taxes on you and me. So it wasn't always like that. When I first came to Washington in the 1980s, Democrats were very much in the vein of keeping taxes low on families so they didn't become an extra burden. And now Democrats want to raise every single penny they can, no matter how they can, so they can fund the government because they worship now at the altar of big government.
Okay, so it's just about feeding Govzilla, your book that you
Yes,
put out.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, they've
We
got to
called
feed
it
that beast.
we called it Govzilla because that's what it's been, this monster that is just eating up the American economy. I have some good news on that front, by the way, Stephen, that Trump has already just so far in his first 7 months in office replaced and eliminated 300,000 federal employees. So we're starting to drain the swamp, and that's a very, very positive thing.
Wow, I didn't realize the number was that big. I appreciate you sharing that. Um, Now, you are part of Unleash Prosperity, Vote with Your Feet. Tell me what that is.
Well, first of all, Unleash Prosperity is a group that was started by Steve Forbes and Arthur Laffer and Larry Kudlow and myself, and it's meant to come up with very strong policy ideas to help grow the economy as rapidly as possible, end poverty in America, create a rising tide that lifts all boats. And so since then, we've had a lot of people to the movement. We now have a Unleash Prosperity hotline that goes out 5 mornings a week, which is free. So I hope that your viewers and listeners will sign up for it. Just go to unleashprosperity.com and sign up for free for the hotline, which is very popular. Newt Gingrich said it's the first thing he reads every morning. So, and then we have a new website called votewithyourfeet.net. And what that website does is allows you to click on two states. Let's say you live in California, you're thinking of moving from Texas. You click on California, Texas, it'll show you the wave of moving vans and how much money is moving from one state to another. And the bottom line here is that the blue states, the really liberal high tax states, are getting crushed, and people are moving to Florida and Texas and Tennessee. Do you know what those three states have in common?
No income tax?
No income tax, exactly. So it's funny, isn't it, how that happens, that when you impose no income tax, and by the way, they have better services than California and New York do, even though they have the highest income taxes in the country. So taxes really do have a big impact on where people live, where they invest, and where they grow their businesses.
Okay. What do you make of Florida, Texas, and now Ohio talking about removing property tax, saying you don't really own the American dream or property if the government can tax you every year till you die?
Well, I don't like taxes, period. Now, the worst taxes I just said are the income taxes. So I do away with those first, but then let's lower property taxes. The only thing that's keeping California afloat right now is that they passed Proposition 13 back in 1978, 79, and that has limited the property taxes. Well, guess what? Every other tax is through the roof in California, but at least they have a reasonable property tax.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I don't think most people realize how much of the world runs on debt and loans and how interest rates apply to those debts. Why do you think Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve is being so stubborn on lowering interest rates, even though it would help businesses, the American people, even the US government?
Well, the answer to that is obvious because he hates Trump and the feeling is mutual, and these two don't get along. And every time I see Trump, he says, "Steve, one of my biggest mistakes was, appointing Jerome Powell." And I nod my head, yes, I'm sure that was a mistake. So Jerome Powell had a very spotty record. He let inflation go up 9% one year under Biden over the whole period, 21% increase in prices. It absolutely killed the middle class because they're living on fixed incomes largely, and everything they buy, from groceries to gasoline to paying their insurance premiums and their medical insurance, that's all going through the roof. And so it's put a huge financial strain on American families.
Okay. I believe it was HUD. They're removing all illegal immigrants from Section 8 housing. They believe that's going to save the government a ton of money. There's just so many things that Trump and the White House are doing. It's hard to keep up with everything. Now, you put out this report over on
Yeah.
X. You said new research confirms that what business owners already know: high crime equals fewer jobs. The University of Colorado
Yes.
study found cities with rising crime see significant drops in employment and increases in poverty. If this is true, why do you have cities like Los Angeles and Chicago and others that are literally fighting President Trump's offer to come in and help clean up crime.
Well, the relationship is true. It's statistically significant that when you cut crime, 3 or 4 years later, you're going to have more businesses, more employers, more people working. If the crime rate is rising, people move out, businesses move out, you have less people working and higher poverty rates. So we need to make sure that we keep crime down because it's the best way to revitalize and rehabilitate neighborhoods that are just being destroyed by muggers and drug dealers and murderers and rapists. Nobody can flourish in that kind of environment.
If you're 64 or older, you need to hear this. Between Medicare scams, corrupt agents, and bloated insurance companies, it's too easy to make costly Medicare mistakes. That's why I've partnered with Chapter, a trusted Medicare team that's helping seniors fight back. They were founded by folks who watched their own parents get misled and decided enough was enough. Chapter is different. They actually listen. They search every plan nationwide to find the one that saves you the most, not the one that makes them the most. People are relieved when they talk to Chapter. Kathleen said Chapter not only explained everything, unlike several other agents, but also saved her hundreds. Jane's saving more than $1,000 a year by switching her Medicare supplement plan. Lower price, same coverage. They're honest, they don't pressure you, and their help is completely free. So if you're turning 65 soon or already on Medicare, don't let the system take advantage of you. Call Chapter today at 435-288-0593. Most people say they wish they had called them sooner. Okay. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but you're a Chicago man, right?
I am.
Okay. So you've got Brandon Johnson telling Trump, don't come here. We don't need you. Red states are the reason we have a gun problem. You've got Governor Pritzker saying, don't come here. Everything is safe. But you've got all these residents, hundreds of residents putting out TikTok saying, send in the National Guard. Our crime is out of control. What are your thoughts on President Trump if he makes that move?
He did bring in the National Guard where I live in Washington, D.C., which is the federal city. And it's just disgusting, frankly, that and unforgivable that, less than a mile from the Capitol, you can walk down the street and you could get mugged or you be accosted by a drug dealer or women can get raped. Those kinds of things should not happen in our nation's capital, certainly not near the window of America, which is, people come from all over the world come in. And where do they come in to? They come in through, to the Capitol and they see the White House. And so the fact that there's so much crime there is just a horrible thing. And I've been mugged in Washington, D.C. and not too far from the White House. And so we can't tolerate this. And Trump has reduced that crime by, I think, 80% just by bringing in the federal troops. Now, that's certainly appropriate for the federal city. I'm a little uneasy about having federal troops in Los Angeles or New York. I think those are problems that the people of New York and Los Angeles have to solve themselves. The problem is they have politicians who won't do anything about it. You're talking about people like J.B. Pritzker and Gavin Newsom. And incidentally, isn't it amazing that those are the two Democrats who were the front runners to be the Democrat nominees for the presidency in 2028? And what are they going to run on? Vote for me. I brought crime through the roof in California, Illinois. So it's a sad state of affairs in the Democratic Party.
Yeah. All right. Final question. I appreciate your insight on that. So you've got Paul Krugman, an economist, similar to yourself.
Yeah.
I don't particularly
similar in professions, not similar in use.
I don't agree as a libertarian myself. I don't agree with a lot. During the lockdowns, he justified high inflation. He justified high spending. He was one of the people pushing the lie that inflation was transitory. Now he's saying that Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve shouldn't be fired for mortgage fraud. It's equivalent to cheating on a third grade exam. I mean, that seems crazy. They've got evidence of this mortgage fraud. Shouldn't this woman at least step down while they do an investigation? Why? Or is this just they have to take the opposite of Trump. Trump wants her fired. Therefore, cheating on your mortgages is acceptable.
Well, first of all, I think if she is guilty of what she's alleged to have done, and I've talked to people inside uh, the administration who in the Justice Department think that it's pretty clear that she did, but I have not seen the evidence personally. So I do believe in a presumption of innocence. But if she actually did commit these crimes, she cannot be on the Federal Reserve Board. The Federal Reserve Board has oversight over mortgages. It's the institution that's trying to keep mortgages solvent, and yet she lied on the application. That was the number one reason why the mortgage crisis happened in 2008. So that disqualifies her. So she's trying to basically play the victim. She's not a victim. She may well be a criminal who lied on a federal form to get more money.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. The judge that's defending her, they went to the same sorority.
Yeah.
But she's not going to recuse herself from that.
Well, the more remarkable thing is, remember Elizabeth Warren, she gained her fame during the housing collapse of 2008 when a lot of unscrupulous bankers and mortgage brokers, wrote and participated in fraudulent loans. That was the number one cause of the complete destruction of the U.S. stock market and economy. And now it's almost humorous to watch Elizabeth Warren actually defending Lisa Cook, who was doing exactly what caused the crisis in the first place.
Yeah. Wow. I know you're a busy man. Thank you for taking time out. I'm going to put those direct links down below to
Please
Unleash
do.
Prosperity, Vote with Your Feet, as well as your books and your X handle. Thank you so much. I know that you are meeting with President Trump on a regular basis, and I just want to say thank you so much for all that you do for all of us. So thank you so much.
I'll tell him, Stephen, that you said hello, and I appreciate your show, and I know you have so many hundreds of thousands of viewers, so it's a real an honor to be on your show, and let's do it again soon.
Great. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.